Hello and welcome to the Busy Bays podcast, where we provide valuable insight and advice on the marketing and other business type questions that auto repair shops encounter as they work towards achieving their goals. Now here's our hosts, Martin Morgan and Becca Weinbein. Welcome to the Busy Bays podcast, a podcast that's all about being the ultimate marketing and business resource for auto repair shop owners. In this episode, we're going to take a deeper look at the other side of your service counter, your customers, and what they're looking for when it comes to great customer service. Martin, let's get this thing started off with a fun story. Can you think of a time that you had fantastic customer service, and why was it so great?
Yes, I have a good story, Becca, and it pertains specifically to auto repair, so it's certainly appropriate. A few years ago, and maybe closer to 5 or 6 years ago, I was coming home from work one day and had a tire that was going flat. And I could tell because I could kind of feel that it was going flat. So I called up the dealership and asked them about the flat tire. And I pulled over and I had seen that there was a nail that was stuck in the tire. And it was kind of toward the side. It wasn't right underneath, so I could see that it was in there. And I told them of the situation, and they said no, they couldn't patch the tire, that they didn't do tire patches, and they wouldn't be able to do that. So I called up another auto repair shop and asked them about it, and they said, well, sure, they'd be happy to do that. Just bring it up to us, and they take care of it quickly. So I did bring my car directly to that shop, and they were able to do it pretty quickly. It was probably half an hour to 45 minutes, and the cost wasn't very much either. And as a result of that customer service experience and them being willing to help me, especially in that kind of feeling of need, we went back there for probably 2 to 3 years consistently, both my wife and I, for all of our car service. And they even took it a step further because it was right down the road from where my wife works. And whenever she would bring her vehicle there, they would drop her off at work. And then usually she'd get a ride back to pick it up, but that was just such a nice touch.
It's a gesture, yeah.
Yeah, it was a really nice touch from a customer service perspective, and then the niceness kind of stopped. The person that used to drop her off left, and so we haven't been back in a year or two since all that stuff stopped happening. But really, that initial customer service action helped us continue to go there for 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, that first impression is a kind of a big deal. Having that great customer service, is not just a pretty placeholder to advertise with on your postcards or on your Facebook page. It's something that can really make or break your business altogether. There are actually 3 things that you can do to make sure customer service is a priority within your shop. What are those type of 3 things that we can hit on big, Martin?
The 3 major things that we talk about, and we will be talking about here, the shop atmosphere itself, so what's happening within your shop. Then also your employees, so those interactions that your employees are having with customers. And then we also have one of the big things and a key thing that we want to talk a little bit about is a walkthrough of your shop as a customer, thinking of it as a customer and going through every single step of the way, engaging what you think is good and what you think is not as good as you might want that to be.
So to really take a dive in right away, what are a few key things that customers look for when they do go to the shop?
I think more than anything else, more than a specific thing necessarily to point to, I think part of it is just the general feeling. We talk a lot about experiences now in life as consumers, as people, as customers. What type of experience is it really giving? What's the general feeling in the shop? How does it look? Does it look like you want people to stay? Is it inviting? Does it have somewhat of an inviting atmosphere? Or
is it clean?
Yeah, is it clean? Also important. What other creature comforts might you have there? I know one of the things you had mentioned before, Becca, was the Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi, obviously really important these days.
No to come in and sit for an hour with my car working on it. I have to have something to do.
Yeah, probably free Wi-Fi even more important than a TV to a
Right.
lot of people these days. And so that's definitely important as well.
So just like Wi-Fi or a TV, it never has to be anything fancy, but it's the thought that counts. You know, the effort that you do demonstrate when some of these things are there, like helpful amenities, having that clean bathroom, having comfortable chairs to sit in. That's really what counts for a customer. They want to feel comfortable and at ease while they're there, and that's going to be something that sticks with them, just like your story where you went back to the shop because they were so helpful. This is just like an atmosphere type of thing too. You have to keep up with that.
It is exactly true. And you think about a place like Starbucks. Starbucks built their whole brand many years ago on trying to be the third place, which was that place in between your home and your work, but the third place you would go to where you could relax or not relax or, have fun, drink. The coffee was just a product that they sold there, but what they really tried to build their organization on was the experience that people had. And I think with more and more attention that's being paid to things like home design, people are thinking a lot more about the spaces that they're in and how they make them feel. And you can see that in restaurants, you can see that in workplaces as they are designed. Certainly in any place that a consumer goes, people are making decisions based on how they feel in a certain place versus how they feel in another place. Something that's really competitive, like auto repair, but a little bit of a different industry, is grocery. And now more and more what grocery stores are trying to do is go beyond just selling the products, because really as consumers we can buy the products from anybody that we want to, and some are going to compete on low prices like a Walmart, which it's all about the low price. But more and more grocery stores are seeing they're not going to compete on price, they're going to compete on experience. So that's why they're making more things within the grocery store. They're kind of setting up these restaurants within a grocery store that are going to attract more people, also make them more money. And so it certainly has that, but they're setting up these little spaces within the grocery stores to make people feel comfortable, to feel good about being there, and to really think about what that experience is like.
It's kind of a make or break to me, because I can go to 3 different auto repair shops, and the one that I can feel like I can be myself and like be comfortable in, I'm way more apt to go back, because then I don't feel like somebody's always staring at me or I have to leave.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes you'll come across any business, and this isn't just true of auto repair, but just by looking at something that somebody would consider a waiting room, you can really tell, is this a place they want people to stay and wait? Or is this a place that they're really hoping nobody's going to stay because it just looks really institutional, run down, just has like a few chairs, not nice chairs, they're not comfy chairs. So, think about the message that you're sending from a waiting room standpoint, or just a general shop standpoint when somebody walks in, based on those things.
Based on having that type of experience, we've kind of hit on why it's so important to have that, but is there any last lingering bits of why that experience is so important for customer service?
I think part of it, again, it's just how you make the customers feel. A lot of times, somebody may not remember all the details, but they're going to remember how they felt in the place. So that's an important aspect of it as well.
Right, so you want to take time to look around the shop and see what kind of improvements, either the small ones or the bigger things that you can do to make your customer experience just a little bit more enjoyable. Big part of this is hop on the other side of the counter. Take a look at what your customers are actually seeing and feeling. It's really important when you are taking a look from their perspective. The next big piece of customer service is your actual employees. So, Martin, what's one thing a shop owner should never assume?
Don't assume that your employees know how to talk to customers. So that's a big one. They may do a great job or they may not. Some people are more blessed with that sort of approach, and some people just don't have it naturally. at their abilities to be able to connect well with customers. So that is not something that you want to leave the chance. That is not something that you want to assume. You want to model great customer service. You want to model what those interactions should look like, and you want to coach people up. It's not saying that, hey, you're no good at this because you can't talk to a customer. Some people just don't know, and nobody taught them. We often, especially as we're further along in our career, make assumptions about what people can and can't do because it was so long ago since we were in their shoes and just starting out our career. And people aren't going to know something oftentimes unless somebody tells them how to do it, unless somebody helps them and coaches them up. You think about yourself as a parent, and sometimes you look at your kids and you're like, why don't you know how to do that? I mean, that seems obvious. Well, guess what? It's really not so obvious, and probably somebody either taught you or you watched over somebody's shoulder to learn how to do some of those things around the house. And the same is true really in any workplace and environment, and especially in a shop, is you have to try to help people, teach them what's good, and coach them up so that they get better at those things.
And not only like training them and modeling good behavior for them to, mimic, but also work with your employees on how they react. So the way you react to a customer and respond can make 300 times bit of a difference in terms of what they foresee as the next possible step. So with that being said, some are obvious, but what are some people skills that a shop can teach to their employees?
One of the things I think is really important is to communicate consistently, especially with updates for a customer who's at the shop or maybe if they're not out of the shop. Too often, people don't want to give either bad news, which bad news may be, I'm sorry that we said it was going to take an hour. It's going to take an hour and a half. But as a customer, as a consumer, it's more important to get those updates. So we're usually okay with hearing some bad news, even if it's a delay or something like that. But I would rather know every step of the way than not get the updates. I think about a recent experience that I had flying commercial airlines, of course. And anybody who's done that, which is probably almost everybody who's listened here, it's really inconsistent from one airline to the next. And I wouldn't be specific about what airline it was, but having flown other airlines more consistently and then recently flying this airline, we were delayed and we were waiting. And throughout the whole process, we were delayed before we boarded, and then we were delayed while we were waiting, and then we were delayed in taking off. And throughout the whole process, they did a really poor job of communicating where we were. So especially when you know you've got to get to a certain place to make a connecting flight, that can be a really bad experience for a customer. It would have been much easier for us if all along the way they would have just communicated, maybe saying, the incoming flight is later than expected. Here is what our expected new departure time is. And then as we were waiting, updates on where we were with that. And then as we got on the plane, another update as far as what we could expect. And then they had a challenge while we were waiting, and they mentioned the challenge, but then they didn't give any updates on that along the way. And it was just not a great experience from that standpoint. And in a way that versus others where if somebody's updating you all along the way, you feel much better about the experience, even if it doesn't work out exactly the way that you wanted. So I would certainly say encourage the shop employees to be in consistent, constant communication with the customers to let them know where everything stands, especially if they've made a promise. So anytime you give somebody a time or you say this is what we're going to do, that's a promise. And it may not feel as much as a promise to you, but it feels like a promise to the consumer. And if you're at the point where you're on the verge of not being able to meet that promise, it's always better to start a conversation or let them know than to let that time elapse and not give them some sort of update.
Transparency is key.
Absolutely. It's totally true.
So employees, whether that's you, the owner, your techs, or maybe your receptionist, they all matter, and so does the way that you treat the customers. People will remember how they're treated, and that will directly reflect just the kind of business that you are. The passionate customers, the happy or the not so happy, will write reviews or tell their friends just about what kind of service that your shop provided. So always make sure that what they're sharing is something that won't necessarily come back to bite you.
And I think another important add-on to that, Becca, because that's very good advice, is every interaction a customer has with you or your brand is an opportunity to lose or gain a customer. And that counts for you. It counts for everybody that works for your shop. It counts for anybody that might be wearing, the shirt from your shop if they stop at the grocery store on the way home. It counts any vehicles that have your shop's name on that, because if somebody driving that vehicle cuts somebody off in traffic, exactly right. That's going to be a bad thing, and somebody's going to see that. They're going to see your name, and they're going to think, oh, that's how they think about people. That's how they treat the community that they're in. There's no way I'm taking my business there, and I'm going to put it on Facebook that somebody was driving like a maniac. So think about that as well. Every one of those interactions is a chance to gain or lose a customer.
Yeah, that's great. So Martin, one of the last things that a shop can do that we kind of took some time to think about for a customer experience, what can a shop do to ensure that they see their shop in a way a customer sees it?
And this is I think really valuable. And if you take one thing away from this, I would encourage you to think about it in this way. It's something that in places that I've been, we've used from an event management standpoint. So you're thinking about an event. What do you want people to experience every step of the way? So as they approach the location, all of those things, and you can do the same thing with your shop. If you can do it, and sometimes it's difficult, especially for an owner or a manager to do, just because you have so much pride in your shop and the work that you do, it can be difficult to have an unbiased look. But think about, as soon as somebody approaches your shop, what do they see? What is their experience? What do they feel? Now they pull into the parking lot there. Again, what are they seeing? What are they experiencing? What are they feeling? What do they see as they walk up? What happens when they open the door to your shop? What happens in that first interaction? Or how long did they wait from the time they open the door until the time they've had that first interaction? What are they seeing all around the shop? Continue to follow that path all the way through chronologically, every step of the way, and write those things down. Go through the process, if you can, unbiased, and collect all the information. Go through with a notepad and write it all down. This was the first step. This is what I observed. This is what I felt. This is what happened. And go through every step of that. And if you can't do it yourself, then find somebody else who can. It's almost like a mystery shopper type of a thing, but they're going to be unbiased, or you hope they're going to be unbiased. You need somebody you can trust who's going to give you the truth no matter how much it might hurt. And then take a look at all those notes and everything that you put, and then gauge, is that what you want it to be? Is that the experience you want somebody to have when they step into your shop? Is that how you want the first interaction to go? Is that how you want somebody to feel when they're sitting in the waiting room at your shop as their vehicle is there? So go through every piece of that and then make adjustments. If you find areas that are not the way that you want them to be, or maybe they don't match up to the brand you want to have, then you have to make changes. You have to change the process, and you have to communicate that to your whole team and let them know why that is, and let them know how important it is from a customer service and experience standpoint for that to be changed, and work to get buy-in from everybody as well.
Yeah, if you've been open for 15 years, having a set fresh of pair eyes just go through that kind of walk through like you're talking about would be huge. Just small, big, anything that you can adjust.
Yes, that's definitely true.
Because customer experience is the one thing that people will continue to talk about, just like Martin's sitting here talking about the airline. I'm going to ask you next time I have to take a flight. But it goes back to all about what they're feeling while they were there, and what kind of experience that it gave them, good or bad. It's very important to make sure that you are doing the best that you can. So just to wrap this all together, the 3 most important things that shops can do to ensure customer service is a priority. What are those again, Martin?
First one was pay careful attention to your shop's atmosphere and think about how does that make your customers feel, and what are those things that you have there that are meant to make them feel more comfortable, and perhaps make that waiting experience not as bad as it could potentially be, and maybe even take that 2 or 3 steps further and make it a really good experience, something that's notable that they may put in a review or something online. Second part of that is making sure to train your employees. Don't assume they know how to talk to your customers. Make sure that you set the standard, and make sure that you're inspecting what you expect. So make sure you're checking on that, and that you're coaching somebody up, and make sure to help somebody who doesn't know, and it's not natural to them to deal with people in that way, and help them learn in a positive way. And then the third part is go ahead and do a walkthrough. If you can do it, awesome. If you need somebody else to help you who's going to be unbiased, then ask them to do that. And take every step of the way. Don't skip a step of a customer, a new customer, when they are going to your shop for the first time. What is their experience, and what might you be able to improve to make sure that you're delivering the type of experience you want people to really have?
Just let us leave you with this. Customer service shouldn't be a pretty placeholder anymore. It should be an actual promise and a commitment that you make to your customers.
Thank you for listening to the Busy Bays podcast. If you want more information about this, please visit myrsw.com and go to our resource center. We plan on hosting one of these every month, so subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out. We just have one more favor to ask of you. It would mean the world to us if you would share this with your friends and colleagues. Our goal is to help auto repair shops succeed, so you can help us achieve this goal by just telling someone else about this show. Thanks again. Have a great day.